Well, cool. I'm here with Nick Washuta out of the University of Vermont. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Look forward to chatting goalie with you for the next 45 minutes, an hour here. I always like to ask at the very beginning of your, I guess, lacrosse career, do you remember the very first time you jumped into goal?
Yeah, I was probably 5 years old. I was born in Princeton, New Jersey, and my two older brothers both started playing lacrosse. They got bored of baseball. So I followed in their footsteps. And as soon as I was old enough to sign up for a local camp, I did. And then I played player for most of it. But then at some point, they were like, we need someone to hop in the goal. And my middle brother was a goalie from the start, and I always followed in their footsteps, and especially his. So when they were like, "We need a goalie," I hopped right in and loved it, and then almost never went back to player. But yeah,
Nice. What did you love about it?
uh, I just honestly at that point I liked doing what they were doing, my two older brothers at least, and but it was a lot of fun just stopping the ball. I have a couple pictures from way back then when I'm like 3 feet tall on the in the cage and taking up like a quarter of it. It's pretty funny, but yeah.
It is pretty funny. Yeah, I always had this theory that like there's only a couple of reasons why we become lacrosse goalies, and one of them is my older brother needs somebody to shoot on. That's like a huge driving factor. So it sounds like that was your case.
Yeah, oldest brother was an attackman, middle brother was a goalie. So I learned everything from the middle brother, and oldest brother would shoot on both of us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. To your comment of being like 3 feet tall in a 6 foot tall goal, I wish the youth would play on smaller goals, right? Because sometimes like, the 3 foot tall goalie says like, how do I stop the high shots? And I'm like, do you teach the right technique, or do you teach them how to like, to stay high? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, actually, it's funny out here. There's a couple of local teams that help coach, and they actually use box nets for some of the younger guys, and I think that actually ends up helping out. But at the same time, it might not be teaching the right mechanics for them at a young age, which is pretty important. But that is tough because it's. Sorry, let me get my.
All good. Yeah.
Sorry. She was looking at the toys I just had and crying for them. Sorry about that.
All good.
But yeah, so that's a tough question, right? I mean, like you said, do you teach them the wrong thing to do to make the save, or do you teach them the right way to do it? And for me, I think that it's important to kind of get the correct mechanics ingrained in their heads from a young age, but at the same time, you kind of got to try to make saves. So it's a tough question, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your take?
It's an interesting debate. Yeah. Man, I'm like teaching the right technique. That's my stance. Cause you're going to grow,
Exactly.
you're going to grow and even like, we'll probably get into it. Like as you grow, as you get more mature, like as you go up to the different levels, your game changes because
Definitely.
of the faster shots, the faster speed of play. Maybe you put on 20 pounds of muscle and 6 inches of height. So your game does change. And how you are as a third grader is very different than how you are as a college goalie. So I don't know, that's my theory.
Definitely agree.
How did you go about learning how to make saves at that young age?
We had a cage in our backyard and a backstop in New Jersey. So basically, probably from 5 to 10 years old, I was out there with my two older brothers, just taking shots and learning how to stop the ball. And my middle brother then was a really big proponent of all of my learning as a goalie and really helped shape me into the goalie that I am nowadays. But yeah, so honestly, it was a lot. My two older brothers just teaching me what to do because they had a couple of years on me. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Did they, did they like study goalies? Did they go to camps? Like, how did they know how to like get in the right stance and get in the right position and make the right save movement?
Yeah. So, like I said, so my middle brother is 5 years older than me. Oldest is 6 years older. So definitely had quite a bit of age difference. And, I think that my middle brother was learning a lot from his club teams back then and kind of passing that knowledge on to me. I think that, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing is he was learning a lot from his coaches back then and kind of helping me do the same.
Gotcha. When you first started out, did you just have the basic like padding, or like how were you protection wise?
I think I had like just chest pad. Not sure if I ever had shin guards. I think we had to wear elbow pads for um, at that point too, probably. But yeah, helmet, neck guard, everything, all the normal stuff. There's a good chance I had shin guards, but I can't quite remember. I know that there were a couple times my brother hit me and I immediately would like start crying and be like, I'm done with goalie and whatever, but eventually made it back out there, obviously. And you get used to it after time.
Yeah, definitely. I never understood the shoulder pads or the elbow guard
Yeah,
requirement
that's
for
different.
goalies, because like first of all, like the elbow guards protect the outside of the elbow,
I just
and like
noticed the back
I
here.
could think of 0 times I got hit on the outside of the elbow,
Yeah,
maybe like
maybe off,
once.
yeah, maybe off a pipe or something, but yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Or like a really weird play where you end up like, I don't know, getting hit in the elbow. But I can name a million times I got hit like in the bicep or
Yeah,
the
yeah, totally.
thighs or the shins.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that's where the padding
Yeah,
should be focused, but awesome. So when we talk about like, different styles of play, there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of different ways to have success in this position. I'm curious, how would you describe your style of play?
definitely. I'm a very relaxed goalie in the net. Um, I don't know. A lot of people tell me that I make saves look easy. I don't have a lot of movement sometimes, and I think that's a big positive for me. If a shooter stares down at me, rips a shot at me, and I take one little step, move my stick a little bit, and make the save. I think it hurts them as a shooter to see that. So for me, I'm definitely a very relaxed goalie. I play a lower arc. That's something I changed from going from my high school level to the college level, and I've stuck with it since then. And I think that my coach at school, Brian Cavanaugh, would always say the same thing about me, is that I'm a relaxed goalie and kind of stay calm and composed throughout the game and whatnot, and things like that.
Yeah. So when you say relaxed, that's kind of like the opposite of like a John Galloway, who's like real, like active, like,
Mhm.
stomping the feet, like really moving around and energetic. Is that a good way to think about it?
Definitely, yeah, complete opposite of that.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I mean, well, it's smart. I mean, there's different ways to play, but like, being relaxed is a good way to play, because when we're like, a lot of goalies get too tense,
I think
right?
that's
And when your muscles are flexed and tense, like then you can't explode to the ball. So being relaxed um, is great for many goalies.
definitely. And I'm taller. I'm like 6'3" and take up a lot of the cage too. So I have a little bit taller stance usually, and but yeah, that's part of it too. Being a bigger
Yeah.
goalie.
And you mentioned playing on the flat arc. Was that always the case, or did you start out a little bit higher and then as you got to
But yeah, so all throughout middle school and high school, I always played on like a normal, mid to high arc, and then kind of once I got to the college level, I kind of started dropping back a little bit more. Not like I'm saying on the goal line or anything like that, but just definitely a low 3-point arc, um, or try to at least, and it just gave me more time to react to the ball, and I think that's an important thing for goalies as well.
Yep. What about the step? Are you a lateral step guy, 30 degree, 45 degree? What about the step?
Yeah, so that's another thing. So all throughout high school was always the 45-degree step, always exploding out to the ball. And then once I got to the college level, I spent a good chunk of my freshman fall getting beat by the ball a lot. I just wasn't making any saves, and and then at that point, kind of Coach Cav, I'll refer to him as Coach Cav, as Brian Cavanaugh. But yeah, anyway, he kind of we tweaked some stuff about my stance where I play in the cage and stuff like that, and one of the things that also changed at that point was the way I step to the ball. I do more, lateral steps now versus exploding out to the ball, right? Because that is another thing to give me more time to react to the ball.
Yeah.
Bounce shots are the only time where that rule breaks. I still explode out to a bounce shot, but for any high shots, any shots in the air, I'm just stepping left or right, basically.
Oh, interesting. So it changes based on the type of shot. So bounce shots, you are coming out and trying to cut off that angle and attack them.
Yeah, something my brother always taught me was meet the bounce on a bounce shot, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but
I have.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so football, you're trying to meet where the ball is bouncing on the ground, and that's something that's always stuck with me, and I've tried to always do, even when the shots in the air and whatnot, and that kind of stuff being changed.
Yep. Yeah, I have heard that, and it was weird because when I played at Cal, this was in 2000, the year 2000, so 20 years ago, we had this AstroTurf that was just like that neon green, like
Yeah,
worn down to the wires, hard as a brick. And so, it was a huge home field advantage because the first half of the game, like the other team would be shooting bounce shots and they would bounce like, 12 feet in the air, like twice the goal, like they're shooting it that hard. So I'd be like, I'd pretty much rule out bounce shots for the first half. And then they'd kind of figure out like, all right, you got to bounce it closer to the goal. And then you can come out and attack.
Nice.
But yeah, the coming out and attack is good, especially on grass fields, because you don't know like what's going to happen when it bounces,
Yeah, I spent much of my high school career playing on a grass field at home, and they switched to turf the year after I left, unfortunately. But playing on a grass field though is like the biggest thing is stepping out and meeting that bounce. Because otherwise you're just reacting to a ball and have a split second to make a save, and sometimes that's impossible. So just on the grass, you need to be active and get your feet moving and explode out to that ball.
Yeah. So you start out in Princeton, New Jersey, which I assume is a hotbed of lacrosse and probably still is, and then you move over to Minnesota, right? Which is not. So how did you continue your? I mean, it probably is now. Like lacrosse is just growing at tremendous.
Yeah, it's grown a lot since since I graduated high school even. But we moved up to Minnesota in 2010, and I also played hockey all my life, so it was a good fit to go to Minnesota to keep playing hockey there. And anyway, there were really only two teams way back then when I first got there. It was Team Minnesota and Minnesota Elite. Eventually, Minnesota Elite kind of merged into Team Minnesota, but basically, we moved to Minnesota for my dad's job. We moved to a certain school district for my brother because he was a senior in high school, a goalie. He didn't want to step in front of another goalie. He was at that point going to Clarkson University, their D3. So he didn't want to kind of step in front of a senior for their senior year and play ahead of anyone, because he probably would have in Minnesota, because at that point it wasn't much of a hotbed. There weren't many great goalies coming out of the state at that point. So we moved to a school district called Wayzata. I went there for a year in 8th or 7th grade, and then transferred to Blake, which was a private school in Minneapolis, for the rest of my middle school and high school years. So, but like I was mentioned earlier, there were two main club teams back then. It was Minnesota Elite and Team Minnesota. Team Minnesota was kind of just starting up at the time. That's kind of Rob Graff. I don't know if you know his name at all, but anyway, he kind of built that whole entire program, and eventually that's kind of like the main team in Minnesota now. So I equate a lot of my growth throughout my high school years to Team Minnesota, and then just we actually ended up picking up a good high school coach too throughout early on in my high school career. Frank Clark, he was a coach at UMD, and then came down and helped coach our high school team. So yeah, it was tough. It was definitely a lot different from New Jersey, because it was a big hotbed there, and there were tons of club teams, tons of great high schools and everything like that. And then you move out to Minnesota, and there's like one or two good kids on each high school team basically, and Team Minnesota basically pulled those one or two good kids from the whole entire state, put a team together. So we were a pretty good team. We won hotbeds one year, and did some pretty big things throughout the summers. But high school to high school, it's definitely like a lot different in Minnesota than it was in New Jersey. And but yeah, it was definitely different with it not being a hotbed. I'm so sorry about my dog.
That's all right. That's awesome. He's jumping up on the bed back there. What was that name? Rob Graff?
Yeah, Rob Graff. He has a son, Ryan Graff, who played at Harvard, and I think the daughter at Columbia as well. But he played at Harvard at some point, and kind of has built lacrosse in Minnesota basically. And honestly, a lot of the growth in Minnesota is due to Team Minnesota and Rob Graff.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll look him up. I was going to ask, what do you think ice hockey added to your lacrosse goalie game?
That's a good question. So honestly, for much of my young age, or I don't know, probably until I was honestly about the time we moved out to Minnesota, I was so focused on hockey. I was gonna go to the NHL, like all that stuff, like everything. I was not lacrosse was the back burner, everything like that. And then I got a super bad concussion. Actually, not even on the ice or anything like that. It was rough housing with one of my friends. Um, and then after that, I was never the same on the ice. And then at that kind of that same point, started focusing more on lacrosse, and that's when lacrosse kind of took over. But I think for me, hockey definitely added athleticism, and I think that I was a player in hockey, so not a goalie, not reacting to a puck or anything like that. But I do think that it definitely built a lot of hand-eye coordination for me, and that's always been a big thing throughout my whole entire lacrosse career.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of playing other sports. So,
Mm-hmm.
I played tons of sports growing up, and I think each one kind of gave me, just general athleticism, but there were certain movements. Like I played a lot of basketball growing up, and when you're in the field in lacrosse, like, I mean, it's very similar to basketball, playing
Mm-hmm.
defense and stuff like that. So there's some specific movements, but then just being in shape, right?
Yeah.
I mean, being an athlete, like, let's be honest, when you're standing in goal, you're not running around like the other
No.
guys. And so like you tend to not be as physically fit. So when you're playing those other sports, it's pretty important. Awesome. The other thing that kind of struck me that I wanted to chat about was your brother. So, you guys go to Minnesota, and he's like, yeah, I'm clearly like, I could have the starting role. But
Mm-hmm.
he's like concerned for others. That's very, very interesting. Very admirable.
Yeah, so when we were first moving out there, we kind of had flexibility with where we could live, with my dad's work and everything, and they would kind of help place us in like a apartment or house. I think we were apartment first, and then eventually got a house. But um, like I mentioned, yeah, he was going D3. I mean, there were like one or two good goalies in Minnesota, so he wasn't going to go try to beat one of those guys out that have had a solidified spot for 4 years. But he knew that basically any other senior in the state or any other goalie in the state, he'd pretty much play in front of. So they basically called around to all the local high schools, kind of eventually found one without a senior goalie. I think he was a sophomore or junior. So Harry was able to help shape that kid kind of moving forward. And no Stowe. But yeah, I think that was a really cool thing, right? Because I mean, he didn't want to go step in front of someone for his senior year, and I'm so sorry. My girlfriend's out of town, so I'm watching the dog alone. But she's normally not this noisy. But I apologize. Anyway, yeah, I think it was very admirable, and I do look up to him for that, because I think that was a really cool thing for him to do. Because I think it would suck, having your senior year ahead of you and having someone come in from out of state and then play in front of you or something like that. So
Yeah. These damn New Jersey guys stole my spot. Awesome. So you start to have some success in high school, and like I guess at what point did you realize that you wanted to play like Division I level lacrosse?
I think that probably happened between my 8th grade year and freshman year. Like I mentioned, I started playing for Minnesota Elite. I played for Minnesota Elite for 1 year and then switched to Team Minnesota after that. And then kind of soon after that, Minnesota Elite kind of just merged into Team Minnesota. But anyway, I think around that time, I started getting more just visibility, and back then that was before the recruiting rules and all that shifted to just your junior year. So I think for me, I was getting coached by some great coaches, like I mentioned earlier, and they kind of were telling me that I could have a future in the sport and things like that. So I think that's when it started to become a reality for me. And then at that point, between my first 2 years of high school is kind of when I was really starting to focus on continuing my career into college.
Awesome. I was gonna say I don't really hear any Minnesota accent from you. Is that like
Yeah,
does anyone in your family speak with the Minnesota accent?
not really. I don't know. I mean, I would say I'm always, if anyone asks me where I'm from, it's Minnesota. I do definitely say some words weird, but not I don't have a hardcore Minnesota accent or anything like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I know no one does.
Awesome. Yeah. So how did University of Vermont come into play? What's kind of your recruiting story there?
Yeah, so I was at Blue Chip, the one at UMBC with Jake Reed's Blue Chip, that one, and or you know what? No, I think it started a little bit before that. But anyway, it was summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I think, and at some point, I think we made it to I forget what camp it was. I think it was somewhere or not camp, a tournament in Philly or somewhere. And Coach Kruger at the time, he was a coach at Vermont, and he had seen me at one of those previous tournaments, and then watched me again at Blue Chip. And I got on the phone with him at Blue Chip, I think, and he was like, "We'd love to have you come up and visit." And I think pretty much, within a week or two, my mom and I drove up to Vermont, met with that whole coaching staff and everything, and they ended up giving me an offer, kind of, I think, on my first visit. So, give me one more second. I'm so
Sure.
sorry. Okay. Yeah. So, he had seen me at some tournament, and then saw me again at Blue Chip, and then we got on the phone, set up a visit, and then as soon as I made it up to Vermont, I was like, I'm going here. The school was beautiful. At that point, I knew I wanted to study mechanical engineering. I loved math and science throughout my high school and middle school years and whatnot. So one of my biggest things in picking a college or school rather was that they had a good engineering program. I always, it's academics first for me, lacrosse second, kind of a thing. So I knew that I wanted to study mechanical engineering. I had a pretty good idea that was basically what I wanted to do. And, Vermont had a good engineering program. They had a great campus, absolutely beautiful scenery, everything like that. And on my first visit, they set up like a little information session with the admissions or whatever in the engineering school, and they kind of walked me through what my 4 years would look like. And when I saw there were no English classes on there, or there was maybe one, I was like, oh, this is a done deal. But yeah, so for me, that's kind of how Vermont went, and everything was great, for the rest of my high school years. And then summer between senior year and freshman year of college, I get a phone call that Coach Curtis was stepping down as the head coach. And then we had, he wanted to go focus on his family, kind of move back to Connecticut, focus on his family, kind of coach at a local high school there. And then he kind of was like, but the good news is they're just going to get a new head coach, keep the two same assistant coaches. So another big part of Vermont was that Coach Kruger was a goalie. So he would be a goalie coach, and having a goalie coach at school would be another hugely important thing, I think, because sometimes goalies don't get enough love. And you just get thrown in the cage for shooting drills, and having a goalie coach who played goalie would know to not put you in a drill like that. Anyway, so after Curtis stepped down, the two assistants were supposed to stay there, Kruger and blanking on the other one. He's at Syracuse now, Coach March. Or I don't know if he still is actually with the coaching changes there, but so they were supposed to stay. Ended up those two they kind of went their own ways as well. So whole entire coaching staff changed. Chris Fifes ended up taking over the head coach position. He was from UNC after they won the national championship in 2015 or 2016, and then he brought Coach Miller and then Jake Bernhardt as well. Coach Miller ended up, after our freshman year of college, moving or switching to Villanova, and then that's when Coach Cav became a full-time assistant coach there. So anyway, that coaching staff change was the best thing that could happen to Vermont. I heard, they just changed the whole entire culture of our team at Vermont, and they're doing huge things now. We just won the America East and everything like that. So I think that going into my freshman year, super scary, having no relationship with these new coaches, which also could have been a blessing in disguise, right? Everyone's on a blank slate with this new coaching staff, so that could have helped. But at the same time, it was still super scary going into my freshman year and not even knowing my coaches or anything like that. So sorry, that was a huge, long.
So much good stuff there I wanted to ask you about. The first thing is I am also an engineer. So you and I are not only in this like elite or small group of people called lacrosse goalies, we are like lacrosse goalies / engineers. It's a rigorous program, right? Like, when I don't know how it was at Vermont, but at Cal, like, I mean, you gotta work your butt off. Like, you're taking these classes that are probably like 4 units, 5 units of work, and they're 3 units, So it's like, it's a rigorous program. How did you deal with the academic? I'm sure it was the same way at Vermont, but how did you deal with like that academic challenge?
It was the exact same way. I mean, it was a super tough curriculum, and it's one of the harder majors that any of the guys on my team were in. I think there were only maybe one other engineer at any given point in my career, and then maybe one other. There's actually another kid going pre-med, but he was super smart. So anyway, there were only a select few of us that were in those really, really hard majors. And for me personally, balancing, the schoolwork kind of meant sometimes, I'd be looking at, Snapchats from guys on the team, having fun with the group of guys. And, I'm at home studying, working on homework or a project, anything like that. So, for me, I definitely, focus on my schoolwork first. And like I mentioned earlier, but yeah, so I think that, it's super, super tough, but very rewarding. And I'm very happy that I stuck with mechanical engineering, and I do love what I do now as my full-time job. And I'm really happy that I studied it in college.
Yeah, same here. I did industrial engineering, but
Okay.
I'm just super pumped that like, I challenge myself to stick with that curriculum. Cause there's, guys talking about, I don't know, they're like astronomy class and like,
Exactly.
or there was one class called Rocks for Jocks, which was like a geology class that was just so basic, sounded so like easy and fun. And, here you are with hours and hours of work. But I think that pays off so like in your life, because
Definitely.
by the time you get to your senior year or even like your junior year, like you just like what your priorities are in life. So
Yeah, and then I think I remember one other thing too that made the switch from high school to college easier is that I didn't end up using any of my AP credits for college credits. So I ended up basically just retaking, cal, chemistry, all those basic classes. And I'd already, excelled at them in high school and done well in the AP tests. And that gave me a year, or I guess a semester, my fall semester, my freshman year, to really, really focus on lacrosse, workouts, all that stuff, getting into my schedule, all that stuff. And then kind of at that point, let, the academics kind of not focus on that so much, right? Because I had already known the whole entire curriculum for chemistry, for Calc 1, all that stuff. It was the easiest age ever, but it allowed me to, focus on, the lacrosse aspect of school, the scheduling aspect of school, the food, figuring out the dining halls, all my classes, everything like that. So, because the shift from high school to college is hard. So, that was something for me that lightened up that change.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's pretty smart. I remember I had we didn't have AP. We had what's the other one? IB. It's called IB. It's like similar thing. But anyway, so I could have gotten the credit for like the very first calculus, calculus 1A, and I did the same thing that you did. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to take it because then it kind of gets me accustomed to taking classes and playing lacrosse
and exactly the balance and everything. So that was something that was big for me. I kind of stole the idea from my brother because he had used one of his AP computer science class credits to move forward in computer science, and turns out his high school didn't teach him a whole chunk of curriculum that kind of ended up putting him in a bad spot that for skipping into the next class, kind of a thing. So I think that after seeing that happen to him, I was like, I'll just retake the class. It'll make my life easier. I know what the curriculum is. I know calculus, I know chemistry. So it allowed me to really focus on on the change from high school to college and lacrosse and everything like that.
Yeah. It was a huge wake up call for me because like I was a straight A student in high school. And then in that class, I ended up getting like a C minus, and I'm like, whoa, like this is a whole new level of competition here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That's
funny.
another thing too. In seventh grade, when I was at Wyzetta still, I would come home every day. My dad would be like, "What'd you learn?" I was like, "Nothing." And then I would go play Xbox after, if I had lacrosse practice or hockey or anything like that. But basically didn't have homework, didn't do anything, got straight A's, easiest school of my life. And at that point, he was like, "Okay, I'm done with this." And that's when I switched from Wyzetta to Blake. And Blake is a college preparatory school. They're, I think, I don't know if they still are, but they were, when I went there, like one of the top 50 high schools in the nation. And I mean, we sent kids to Ivy League schools, everything like that. So they did a super good job preparing me for college. And I do equate pretty much all of my academic success to Blake and for getting me ready for college. So that was something that was really big for me.
Cool. Yeah. The other thing that's just so interesting there is the head coaching change. So like, that's such a crucial element of your recruiting process, is getting to know that coach and making sure that it's
Definitely.
someone you're compatible with and that you can learn from. And you go in pretty much blind. Did you ever
Yeah.
have like second thoughts of trying to look for another school?
Yeah, I was super nervous. I mean, I think the first time I met him was basically at, or at like freshman orientation, kind of, there was like a picnic thing, and they seemed like a great coaching staff, but I had no prior knowledge of them. I looked them up and everything like that, but it's like I had no, like you said, no relationship built with them, and it was really tough. Like I said, it was scary my first semester, but I think that it kind of ended up being a blessing in disguise. Like I said, they changed the culture of our program, and the way they coach is incredible. And I have nothing but great things to say about Coach Weiss, Coach Bernhard, and Coach Cav.
Awesome. When you say they changed the culture of the program, like how would you describe the culture that they brought in?
So, I mean, there are some crazy stories about, stuff that kids got away with on the team before they got there. So I think that, something that I was kind of blind to when I was picked Vermont was that I think that before my freshman year there, the off the field stuff might have been a little bit more important to some of the guys on the team. And I think when Coach Weiss came in, he really changed that, got us focused on lacrosse, focused on winning and all that stuff. Our freshman year was tougher, my freshman year rather. Like the team in 2016, we struggled, but after that we built and just worked on the team and everything. And yeah, it was just an incredible experience to be part of that program and help build everything that they have today. But yeah, they really just totally changed the way the team is coached, the weight room, everything, all aspects, conditioning, lacrosse, everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Yeah. What do you what advice would you give to like a freshman or a sophomore, starting this recruiting process?
Recruiting process.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I think definitely one of my biggest things is staying positive. I think that being positive both in the cage and on the field, and then just in everyday life too, is hugely important. I think that and then the other thing I would say too actually is probably kind of get an idea what you want to do in college, right? You can't really make a living off lacrosse unless you're Lyle Thompson or the biggest names in lacrosse, things like that. So, get an idea for what you want to do after lacrosse, right? So, figure out what you want to study, make sure that the schools you're looking at actually have those majors, make sure that it'll put you in a good spot for finding a job after school, all that sort of stuff, and then lastly, just make sure that the school you pick is, or looking at rather, is a good fit, right? Try to get on campus if you can before, or I know with COVID, it probably makes everything a lot tougher. But you know, the biggest thing is making sure the school fits, and then also the coaching staff too is hugely important, I think.
Yeah. And if they switch coaches, it could be a blessing in disguise, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great advice. Great advice. When you were learning the ropes, I mean, I guess you learned a lot from your brother, brothers, other like college or pro goalies that you kind of, watch their game and learn from.
So in high school, probably the latter half of my high school career, Grant Dresden, he was a goalie at Marquette. I don't think he might have played a little bit, but um, he would come back and work with me like in the last couple of weeks of my high school season, you know, once the college finished up. And our high school season always went a little bit later in Minnesota because you can't really play the first couple months of the year because of the like -degree weather and snow and everything. So we always had our season kind of going into early summer, and he would come back and work with me. And honestly, like kind of probably between my sophomore year of high school and senior year, he was a big reason that I kind of or that helped me get so much better. I think he helped me take a lot of steps forward, kind of looking, into my college career and things like that, making slight tweaks to my stance and things like that. So I do. I'm really thankful that he would come back and work with us.
Awesome. You just brought up playing in the snow, which isn't something that I'm familiar with. I'm sure you're living out in San Diego now. You're not familiar with it anymore.
No, not anymore.
What about but Minnesota? Yeah, a lot of snow. Vermont also, right? A lot of snow. What is there any tips you have for goalies for playing in the snow?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So Minnesota was more cold than snow. Basically, it would, maybe snow once every couple of weeks. But the thing with Minnesota is once it snows, like that snow is there the whole entire winter. It doesn't get above freezing for, I know there's one winter it didn't get above freezing for the whole entire month of January, I think, or maybe even, I don't know. Might have been even worse than freezing. Anyway, so in Minnesota, like I said, the season happens a lot later, but Vermont, there was a lot of snow. We're right in the mountains basically. And I think playing in the snow is tough. You gotta be, goalies are already crazy, as you know, and or got a little, a couple screws loose probably. And to want to stand around in, 0-degree weather and get a rubber ball thrown at you, that's probably a little bit harder in the cold is even crazier. But for playing in the snow, I think one of the biggest things, if you can change the color of the ball. I know a lot of goalies don't have that. You don't have that possibility. But at Vermont, we had a bucket of orange balls ready to go if we had to have a snow practice, because tracking a white ball in the snow is next to impossible. But at the same time, it was fun sometimes. When we were working with Coach Cav in a snow practice. We would keep out the white ball sometimes to kind of work on hand-eye coordination stuff and tracking a white ball on a white background. So that was cool, but definitely, for live reps, we were using orange balls in the snow. And that's probably the biggest thing. If you can change the color of the ball to actually be able to see it against the snow, that helps. And then, I was used to the cold because I grew up in it in Minnesota. So I would wear a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Most guys wear, leggings, like 2 pairs of leggings, long sleeves, everything. And, I think that for me, I was just used to the cold before getting to college. If I had lived in San Diego in high school, I think it would have been a culture shock going from here to Vermont. I'm in 70 or 75-degree weather basically every day. It's usually sunny. I think today it's a little bit cloudy, but in Minnesota, it's like I spent the whole entire winter freezing cold. We'd be playing pond hockey and it's -20 out. So, I think I got used to the cold in Minnesota. And, in Vermont, it's a little bit different type of cold. It's like a wet cold because Lake Champlain doesn't freeze over. But I think that the 2 biggest things is, if you're not used to the cold, stay warm. And then if you can get a different color ball, that would be super helpful.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, I've heard all these different tricks. The leggings, thermal underwear, and
Mhm.
sweatshirts, and like some goalies put
Oh yeah,
those little snowboard pack, or not snowboard, the little heat packs, and kind of break
hand
one of those and put them in their gloves, and so many
surgical gloves
tricks.
are another, or latex gloves are another
I've heard of that one too. Yeah,
thing to do.
yeah.
I don't like it though. It makes your hands all gross and sweaty, and yeah, it's weird.
Well, let's be honest. Lacrosse gear doesn't smell
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Well, you end up having, really nice career at Vermont. Some All-Americans thrown in there. And I'm curious. So you graduated last year,
Mm-hmm.
and that COVID shortened year was your last year.
Yep.
Why did you decide not to come back for another year?
Yeah, so that was tough. So there was a lot of things happening. Basically, I at that point I was finishing up uh, my engineering curriculum and whatnot. So I was ready to graduate on that note. But at the same time, if I was going to go back, I didn't want to just take extra classes. I wanted to get a master's. So that was the biggest thing for me. If I was going back, I had to be getting a master's. Otherwise, it wasn't really worth it in my mind to go back for an extra year. Um, so that being said, Vermont does have a one year master's program for engineering, but you had to kind of be enrolled in it summer between your junior and senior year, and then senior year to take just kind of different versions of classes. Um, Basically, they just had a tiny bit more work in the classes I was taking already, but I just didn't do that work because I wasn't enrolled in the one year master's program. So I kind of reached out to some of the people in the School of Engineering, and it kind of sounded like it wouldn't be able to happen where I could kind of either backtrack the work or do something like that. So that was a good part of the reason why I didn't end up going back, because I wasn't going to be able to get a master's in just 1 year. I could have started getting my 2 year master's, but then it's like, a whole another 2 years. And then my girlfriend had already been living out here for my whole senior year. So she was working out here, knew she had a 2 year commitment for a job out here. So, it kind of, if I did the extra year, it would have been probably fine, it would have worked out. But the, not getting a master's on my end was the biggest thing. And I think for me, I kind of wanted to move on with my engineering career and potentially have a career in lacrosse after school. And I think that it just kind of, immediately after COVID, I was like, I'm 100% going back for an extra year. But when our season got canceled, everything like that. But then I started to think about it more. It's like, I think the decision I ended up making, I'm super happy with where I'm at in life right now, and my job and everything. If I can get the PLL stuff to work out too in the future, that'd be awesome. But I'm playing enough lacrosse. I'm having a ton of fun, and my lifestyle here is great. So I'm really happy with the decision I made, and especially since COVID still even impacted this year's this college lacrosse this year still.
Mm-hmm.
I never in a million years, when everything happened in March last year, I was like, well, there's no way by the fall COVID will still be a thing, right? It'll be done. I was so yeah. So anyway, I'm happy with the decision I made. It was a tough decision to make, but I think that it was the right decision for me personally to kind of move forward with my engineering career and potentially a career in lacrosse after school.
Awesome. Yeah. Congrats. You end up, talking about, the start of your professional lacrosse career.
Mm-hmm.
You got drafted by the Outlaws
Mm-hmm.
with the 11th pick overall, which is pretty impressive for a goalie, because each team just needs 2 goalies. So for them to spend that, that draft pick on a goalie says quite a bit. How was your experience in the MLL?
It was great. It really exceeded my expectations, honestly. I feel like there's a lot of not negativity necessarily, but a lot of competition probably between the PLL and MLL at that time. And I think that the MLL did a great job actually. And, with the COVID stuff that happened I think they might not have handled the bubble as well as they should have, right? There were some guys commuting to the bubble. So that kind of defeats the purpose of a bubble. but I think overall, like I was super pumped when I got drafted. It was an incredible experience, kind of a dream come true and things like that. So I was really happy with my experience there, and the Outlaws organization was amazing.
Yeah, I've interviewed a bunch of outlaws, including Jesse Schwartzman, and he had just nothing but amazing things to say about that. Like as you know, as the
Yeah.
way organization and the way they run their program.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting because about the bubble, because I mean,
Yeah.
for all these guys, like it's not their for them. I guess 99% of the guys, it's not their full time job. Like you've got
No,
other gigs, so it's not like you can be like the NBA and be like, hey, you have to stay
exactly.
around, but you're good. You're making millions.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that worked out for me because at that time I kind of just waited on my job search. I didn't have
Mm,
anything lined up quite yet. So I was able to go do that, put my full focus into it. But that in itself was super tough too, right? It was 11 days. So I had 11 days and not much lacrosse since March to get used to the pro level. And it's like I had 1 or 2 practices, um, and after those 2 practices, the coaching staff was like, you did great in the 2 practices, so we're going to have you split time with Christian Knight. So that was a great experience. I don't think I played particularly amazing in the COVID in in that summer, but
yeah.
I was happy with some of my games, but um, it was tough, right? It was just 11 days to go from college level to pro level, and
Yeah.
it is a whole different ballgame. It was like stepping up from high school to college, and it really high school to college even took me like a whole year to get my feet underneath me and then really feel comfortable in the cage again.
Yeah.
So
How do you how do you go about, like, what's your approach to leadership? Because goalies ideally, are some of the leaders of not only the defense but the
mhm,
team. And in college, like you're just spending so much time with those guys, so that like you can build up your reputation, right, based on all that time spent together and getting
mhm.
to know one another. How do you do that, like at the pro level, like be a leader when you just like, these guys are just coming in and you're practicing twice?
Yeah, at the college level, it's definitely a lot easier for me to help lead the team. But at the pro level, it's like I'm coming in, I'm just a college pick, a college draft, and it's like there's all these guys who've I was on the field with John Grant Jr. and it's like how do I can't even try to say anything with him in the room. It's like he has so much more lacrosse knowledge than me, and it's like so at the pro level, it's tough to be a leader, but I think being a goalie that helps, right? You can kind of talk with your defense. If a goal's on you, then a goal's on you. But if we're like we need to force outside shots more, then say that. But it's definitely a lot tougher to lead at the pro level than, at least in my opinion, to lead at the pro level than to lead at the college level. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also probably just because I was young at the time, or still am young. But yeah, I think it like I said, it's tough with some of these huge names in lacrosse to want to lead it, to try to lead with them or by them because he has probably double the amount of years I've been in playing lacrosse. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you still are young. I mean, what are you, 22, 23?
23.
23. Yeah, geez. I think I read an article and doing research for this that I don't know if it was self-described, but you're a quiet leader. Is that true? And what does what does that mean to you?
Definitely. Coach Weiss always said I kind of lead by example. I'm never the loudest guy, in the locker room or in any, actually, honestly, probably in any given space, any given room, I'm never the loudest person. But I always, I always like to say I led by example throughout college. I always focused, like I said, I focused on my academics, made sure I got good grades first, and always crushed in the weight room. Conditioning was a little bit tougher for me. You had already mentioned about goalies not running so much, or so that's always tougher. But I always worked hard and tried to get my conditioning up and keep that up. But for me, weight room was where I kind of excelled. And then on the field too, I did the same thing. Right, I like to lead by example. I was never the loudest person, and then on the off the field stuff too. I like to kind of keep watching the younger guys and stuff like that. And I tutored most of the guys on our team in math. So I kind of build a relationship with the younger guys on the team usually, and help get them, ready for their 4 years of college. So, and things like that. So I think that I definitely do take that to heart, that I lead by example. I'm a quiet leader, things like that.
Cool. That's great. That's great. I mean, it kind of goes back to your relaxed style of goalie play. It's like that's also your style of leadership is relaxed and kind of let your actions do the talking and do the heavy lifting as opposed to the words, which is awesome, right? I mean, there's different styles of goalie play. There's different styles of leadership, and you can excel at either.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to see those loud, really verbose and kind of goalies. And if that's your style, great. But you don't have to see those guys and think that you have to be like that. There's a lot of different ways to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Well, awesome. And then so just this last year, you got a tryout with the Archer. Is that the right way to say it? It got kind of invited to their camp. How was that experience for you?
Incredible. The level of play was just a whole new level. Like, I mean, Outlaws was a whole new level, and then this was even more of a step up. So it was just impressive how fast the ball moved around on offense, things like that. But for me, it was just an incredible experience. Like, just even being on the field with Gittleman and Drew Adams was incredible. I've always looked up to those guys. It's funny, I was talking to Gittleman. I'm like, did you ever, you came to do a camp in Minnesota one time, right? And he's like, yeah, it was me and the defensive coach from Harvard at the time. And he was like, oh, it must have worked for you. I was like, yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so I went to his camp in Minnesota at one point, and but it was just cool to be on the field with him and be playing, alongside them. And for me, it went well. I thought I was pretty happy with how I played. I struggled a tiny bit in the practices, but at that point, I was still just trying to get used to the speed of play there. But I did, honestly, I was happy with how I played in the scrimmages. I made a lot of saves. We did like a little mock scrimmage against the Whip Snakes. I think I had 6 or 7 saves, only got up 1 goal, so I was happy with that. And then we scrimmaged the Redwoods. I had 2 failed clears, which was really unfortunate. Panicked on one. One of them other one was probably not my fault. It was a good pass. We just ended up dropping the ball. But the first one panicked on, and that's kind of, I'm literally reliving that scenario in my head over and over again. I'm like, oh. And then for Redwoods scrimmage, I think I ended up making 3 or 4 saves, let up 2 goals too there. So I was pretty happy with how I played in the cage in those scrimmages. But for the Archers, I talked to Bates and everything, and he wanted to stick with their 2 guys from the last 2 summers, right? Drew and Adam have proved themselves at that level. And I just haven't had that chance yet. I played with the Outlaws, but so hopefully moving forward, they'll bring me back next year again. Drew is supposed to, I don't know if I'm really this or not, he's supposed to be retiring in the next couple of years. He's thinking about it. So hopefully I can kind of be the next person there. And having Coach Cav, he's an assistant coach on the Archers. So he really helps pull for me, and it was awesome just having a couple of days to work with him again and kind of go back to our 4 years at school together. And then also playing with one of my best friends from college, Warren Jeffrey, was an awesome experience. And then, Jake Bernhardt, he's on the Whip Snakes, so I got to see him there. And then Ian McKay on the Chaos now is, it's just awesome to be back with some of my teammates from Vermont and to play with them for a couple of days at training camp. And hopefully it works out in the future. We'll see what happens. But whatever happens. And, I'm happy I got that experience. It was awesome.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's going to work out. Yeah, I've talked to both Drew Adams and Adam Gittleman, quite a bit. Yeah, they're great guys and just legends at this position. So what an amazing experience to, get to play with those guys.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's always going to be a tough scenario when you've got 2 like legends, who've played well in the previous years. I mean, there probably wasn't anything you could do to unless you just like made all of the saves, right? To earn that spot.
I was on the phone with Coach Cav, and he's like, dude, there's a world where you saved every single shot, every single, made every single clear, you did everything perfectly and still wouldn't be on the roster for the summer. And it's like, and Coach Feist was texting me, and he's like, it's a former Team USA goalie, UVA national champion, and things like that. So it's like that's good company you're going to keep on the team, and it's hard to replace you with those guys. So I think it's okay. I think for me, actually, it ended up being, best case scenario for the summer. I just started a new job back in March, end of March. And it would have been a lot of time off this summer. So, my company does have a cool time off policy where you can sort of have unlimited time off, but, to take off, every Thursday or Friday, or every Friday, basically for the whole entire summer, only being there for, I don't know, at the time, 6 or 7 weeks or whatever, would have been a lot to ask for. So I think that, this might be another blessing in disguise, right? I've been able to work with Newbold and Jay every week. I feel like I'm playing lacrosse at a high level right now in the cage, and just getting shot on by Jay is amazing. He's incredible inside, and then Newbold can shoot well over 100, so he's just ripping on me every week, and I'm just getting used to that shot speed again. And yeah, I think that again, it might be a blessing in disguise. We'll see what happens in the future. Hopefully I get another shot at it, but if not, I'm still happy. I'm super grateful that I got that experience to play in that league for just a couple of days. It's an incredible experience.
Awesome. Yeah. Congrats. Yeah. I'm just chuckling over here thinking of you showing up to your first job. Like, oh yeah, hey guys, like I don't work Thursdays or Fridays. I hope I hope that's going to be cool with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, literally even the time off for training camp, it was like 6 weeks after I started. And I was like, it was such a, not necessarily an awkward conversation. My manager was understanding, but it was definitely a tough conversation to have, right? I'd only been there for, like 6 or 7 weeks, like I said at the time, and to ask for the whole entire week of training camp off was tough.
Yeah. What are you doing? What's your job?
I'm a mechanical engineer for Alcon. We're a med device company. We focus on like eye care and eye surgeries and stuff. And then I specifically work on a handpiece for cataract surgery. So surgeons, or basically physicians, use the handpiece to remove the cataract lens from your eye. And then there's another tool that replaces it with an intraocular lens that we manufacture to correct patient's vision.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks so much for doing this and kind of sharing your story and some tips along the way. Wish you nothing but the best in the PLL and in your upcoming lacrosse career. You're like you said, you're down in San Diego right now, still getting some work in, which is awesome to hear. When you think about, just a couple more questions, when you think about like training wise, what is it for you that gets you in the best spot to be an elite goalie? Is it a lot of live shots? Are you doing a lot of other drills? Like what's your training regimen look like?
Yeah, I think that for me, the best year of my college career was my sophomore year. I think that a good part of that reason actually was that Ian McKay was hurt. He ended up redshirting that year. He did something to his foot. I think he either broke it or did something else. So he had to get surgery and all that stuff. So for fall, he was just focused on surgery and rehab and all that stuff. But for spring, like kind of halfway through the spring, he was pretty much good to go again. Like he probably could have played, but at that point, he wanted to still use his redshirt year. Anyway, he was shooting on me every single day with Coach Cav, like, and he can sling it, he can shoot well over 100 as well. And, just having shots that are far faster than what you're going to see in a game, I think personally is one of the most important things. So like right now, like I mentioned with Newbold, he's got a long pole, he's shooting on me like probably 110-ish. And I think that, that just makes every other save so much easier, right? I have so much more time to react to a shot coming at me 90 miles an hour versus his that's, coming at me pretty fast. So I think that, for me personally, all throughout my lacrosse career, having shots that are faster than the shots you see in a game, practice, anything like that, are some of the most important things you can do, right? It just helps your reaction time and everything like that. And I think that's probably the most important sort of training for me, that and hand-eye coordination stuff.
Awesome. What do you do for the hand-eye coordination stuff?
My favorite hand-eye coordination drill is probably just turning or like grabbing a shaft or whatever, using the butt end of your stick and making saves that way. I love that drill. I love doing like ball toss stuff, juggling, things like that. But probably above all is the the shaft drill. I love that drill. I think that's probably another. That's probably my second favorite thing to do, aside from just
Awesome.
seeing straight shots. Yeah.
Yeah. When I look at pictures of you from Vermont, you know, the
Hmm.
thing that sticks out is you got a sweet dyed STX Eclipse 2. What's the story behind that?
That's Coach Cav. He kind of had like a dye lab per se that he would dye up some guy sticks on the team, but he did a super good job. My three Vermont heads, all my dyed heads are um, back in Minnesota, hanging up on the wall. Although I might actually put one of them back into action at some point here, but yeah, he does a sick job with those dyed sticks. So hopefully in the future, if I make it back into the PLL with the Archers or something like that, he could dye up another one for me because he does an awesome job.
Yeah, I'll have to hit him up. Have him
Yeah,
dye me up one too. Yeah, I'll
definitely.
post a picture of this when this comes out. It's like, you know, it's got the I don't even know. Is it tie dye? It's like green and yellow. It's oh man, it's just looks good.
Hmm.
Do you string your own sticks?
I do. Yeah, one of the most important things I think as a goalie is to string your own sticks. Uh, it's funny. I think that my brother Harry at some point was like, my biggest regret was not learning how to string a stick, and that I think he was probably sophomore in college at that point, and I was, a freshman or a sophomore in high school at that point. So at that point, I was like, okay, I gotta learn how to string a stick. So my dad at the time would have strung all my sticks and player sticks. So I started out stringing player sticks, kind of learned the techniques and everything like that, and then basically just throughout high school started to learn how to string a goalie stick. And I think that's one of the most important things that I did. And it's hugely important to be able to string your own stick, to make tweaks on the fly if something breaks, if something
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think yeah, stringing your own stick is hugely important.
Yeah, I was never a good stick stringer, so I regret it. I regret it quite a bit. I since now have connected, you know, just being in this space, have connected with
Hmm.
just some amazing stringers. So I have like just this awesome heads. But yeah, I wish I would have learned.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, cool, Nick. If people wanted to get a hold of you, is there a way they could do that? Do you do the social medias?
Yeah, they could do social media. They could send me an email. I can. It's just nicholas.washuta@gmail. If you want to ask me any questions, but feel free to message me on Instagram, anything like that. I don't really go on Facebook or Twitter, so just do Instagram or the email. That's totally fine with me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nick, if you had to leave the kids out there with one last piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh. Just have fun with it. I think that the second you stop having fun with lacrosse, it could be the end. So just, if you're not having fun with it, then find something that you love doing and do that. But, for every second that you're having fun with it, you're going to be getting better. You're going to want to focus on it more. So just have fun with lacrosse. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Very well said. Nick, thanks so much.
Thank you.